What's up everybody, Gen X Dividend Investor here. In this video I share how dividends can save your bacon by specifically giving you another income stream to help you avoid a retirement disaster. And by retirement disaster I mean running out of money in retirement. In fact, 63% of Americans were found to be more worried about running out of money in retirement than they are about dying. But 35% of Americans say that putting a portion of retirement savings into something that provides lifetime income payments was a top solution to their concern of running out of money. So dividends might just be what people don't realize they need. Here's an article I just found about a woman who said her husband just retired, but she can't sleep at night due to worrying that they'll outlive their money. Part of her anxiety stems from the timing of her husband's retirement, which came sooner than they had hoped or planned. Unfortunately, that happens sometimes frequently with older workers. But one of the best ways to save your butt from being utterly stressed due to an accidental job loss is by investing in quality dividend stocks. I mean, having that extra income coming in can help resolve some pressures of bills building up. I found that quality dividend assets are the best way I know of to generate sustainable and growing income throughout your life and beyond, and are also the best way I know of to start and create true generational wealth for you and your descendants. And if you don't invest intelligently, then I think you're asking for financial issues. I found a study from a nonpartisan group called the Employee Benefits Research Institute, which found that about 40% of all older US households are projected to run out of money in retirement. Yikes. They looked at people's combined income sources from Social Security, pensions, IRAs, brokerage accounts, and even housing equity, and compared that against consumer expenses and probable out-of-pocket health expenses, along with potential nursing home expenses beyond what Medicaid might cover, and concluded that things look grim. Now, it's just a model with some big assumptions about healthcare that won't necessarily apply to you, so don't freak out at their conclusions. They also found that 68% of workers and 74% of retirees are confident that they will have enough money to live comfortably throughout retirement. Part of the reason why people are feeling more confident in their retirement these days is because wage growth is now outpacing inflation growth, and people feel better about their assets and income. So your takeaway is that you want to be investing in quality assets, and I say quality because you want them to be around for decades, not just years. And if you are concerned hearing that 40% of Americans may end up running out of money in retirement, then I'd also recommend you sit back and relax, as I still think you'll be okay for a bunch of reasons. Like maybe you think you'll need X amount of cash in retirement, but most people's expenses go down due to things like not having to commute to work. Plus, another reason I don't think you need to stress is because you'll adapt to whatever is thrown your way. I mean, if your money is tight, then you'll just cut back as needed, and you'll end up getting by. Besides, the lower income you have, the more social programs there are to help, and while your goal should be to not need any of them, the good news is that they're probably available if you come up short. Another reason why you shouldn't stress is that your income in retirement might be taxed more favorably than when you were working, which could translate into your dollars going further. Like if your taxable retirement income is $29 grand a year as a couple, then your federal income taxes are effectively zero after the standard deduction. Or if you invest for a long time and you accrue a lot of solid blue chip dividend stocks, then a retired married couple could make around $123 grand a year of qualified dividends in a taxable account and could owe zero in federal income taxes. Or even better, if you had built up a Roth account and you were retired, then you could be getting tax-free dividends, potentially forever, all of which makes less money go further. Plus, you could always try new ways to make extra income, even if you're elderly. Like you could start a YouTube channel around whatever passions you have, or you could start a blog, write a book, start consulting in your old career industry, or a slew of other things to generate cash. And I know that when I talk to retired people, they often say that their anxiety about finances in retirement decreased as time went on, so that will probably happen to you as well. So bottom line, live reasonably frugally, invest reasonably non-stupidly, and I'm sure you'll do better than you hope. And again, if you invest in quality dividend stocks, then I think you'll have a better chance of having things work out, regardless of what happens in the market. Like lately, more experts have been estimating that we might have another lost decade in the stock market. Remember, the lost decade was a period from 1999 until around 2009 to 2012, where the markets fell and took about a decade to get back to their old peak. This graph on Google shows that it took the S&P 500 around 13 years to get back to its high point. So how could dividends have saved you in that nasty period? Well, this graph from Hartford Funds shows us that in the lost decade of the 2000s, the S&P 500 index had a negative return, and 100% of your returns only came from dividends. And if you had been investing in companies that increased their divvies, like good aristocrats, then your return probably would have even been more, which makes sense if you think about it. Dividends tend to give you returns even when markets crash, and the great dividend stocks keep delivering and increasing their dividends in all markets. So the next logical question might be as if a lost decade is realistically going to happen again. Now, of course, no one knows for sure what the future may bring, but financial experts look at various metrics in previous events to try to forecast things. And in September of 2022, I started seeing more people predict that another lost decade was looming. Here's a lost decade article that came out in 2022. And then here's a different lost decade article that also came out in 2022. In April of 2023, the lost decade talk started extending into worldwide growth concerns. And in January of 2024, I found this financial article which explained why it looked like we might be headed for another lost decade in the US stock market. Specifically, they noticed that when investors are over-allocated to stocks rather than other asset classes, then that's precisely when the markets end up going down and sideways. The blue line in this chart represents average investor stock allocations, and the red circles represent the spikes. Those spikes correspond to when we had a lost decade. So first that happened in the 70s, before I was investing, and then it happened again in the 1999 to 2009 range, and then we recently got another spike, implying we may be at the beginning of a new lost decade. Of course, experts predict stuff all the time, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. I don't change my investing strategy either way, as my dividend investing approach has worked reasonably well in all conditions. But that being said, I thought it would be interesting to do a simple estimating exercise to see what can happen to your portfolio and income during a lost decade, depending on what investing strategy you follow. So the square on the left represents someone with a $500,000 portfolio who's in retirement as we enter a new lost decade, and they're invested in non-dividend growth stocks, and I'll assume we average a 3.2% inflation rate, which is what the long-term average has been, and I assume that they need to withdraw $20,000 a year in buying power for retirement expenses. Starting year 1, their portfolio is at $500K, they withdraw $20K for expenses, and they get into year 2 with a $480K portfolio. Granted, if this was a good year in the stock market where prices go up 10%, then their portfolio would have ended up $30K rather than down $20K. But this is a lost decade, so I'm pretending the market just goes sideways for 10 years. And since I'm assuming a 3.2% inflation rate, then they need to keep withdrawing 3.2% more than the previous year, which is why the withdrawal amounts go up a bit over time in order to maintain the same buying power. What we find is that by year 10, their portfolio has fallen down to $295K. Ouch. Now, the square in the middle represents a different retirement withdrawal strategy, in this case someone doing a modified 4% rule. The normal 4% rule suggests that retirees can safely withdraw the amount equal to 4% of their savings during the year that they retire, and then adjust for inflation each subsequent year for 30 years, kind of like what the first person did. And as long as we don't have things like double lost decades, then that should work out fine, and historically has. My modified rule was to pretend that the person is more conservative, so he decides to withdraw 4% of however much is left in his portfolio, rather than 4% of what his portfolio originally started at, to more ensure that he never runs out of money. In this middle case, we see that his portfolio goes down less than the first guy, but he's also taking less income out. Now, in both situations, the people could also have some dividends coming in, but I wanted to show what non-dividend growth-only portfolios might look like. And don't forget that sometimes your expenses could spike in any given year. Like as we get older, odds are our medical expenses will increase, and sometimes will increase dramatically. Another big variable can be life expectancy, because the longer you live, the more risk you have that you could run out of money with a 4% strategy, even though historically it's worked out. Another risk factor can be taxes. Anyway, the final person I modeled is in the square on the right, who is a dividend-focused investor, someone with a 4% average weighted starting yield and a 5% average weighted dividend CAGR. In this case, he isn't selling any stocks, so his portfolio stays at $500K. The first year he makes $20K in dividends, and then slowly his dividend distributions increase each year due to the dividend hike CAGR, which is outpacing inflation. At the end of the lost decade, we see his div portfolio is still at $500K, and his buying power has slightly outpaced inflation each year. Now, a more realistic model would show growth portfolios growing more during non-bad years, so their starting portfolio amounts would probably be higher, but my point was really just to show you why most dividend investors aren't concerned about a lost decade, and actually would look forward to one as it would allow them to acquire more assets at what is a lower relative price over time. So normal markets means our quality dividend stocks go up and we get more income. Or we have a lost decade and our stocks go sideways, but we keep getting income, and probably income that is growing. I'm wagering my portfolio will probably go up less than the market in up years, and it'll probably go down less in down years, and I'm cool with those trade-offs given where I am in life. But things like the lost decade help explain why some people don't invest. I mean, imagine how scared you'd be to invest if you heard we were in a lost decade. Bottom line, there are a lot of financial stresses people have, even if you make decent bank. Like this data said that about a quarter of people making over 5 times the federal poverty level, which means one's making over $150,000 a year for a family of 4, stress about being able to save for their retirement. So if upper middle class people are struggling to invest, then all the folks below them on the income ladder are probably even less likely to invest. But even if you aren't investing, you still probably know what you should be doing if you want a good retirement. Like this data said that 41% of people knew that they needed to increase their retirement savings. 38% understood that they needed to reduce current spending and save more. 35% said they needed to put a portion of their retirement savings in a product that provides lifetime income payments. And 35% said that if they worked longer and retired later, it would help. Finally, 26% said they needed to put a portion of retirement savings in a product that provides a balance of market protection and growth, which is exactly what I feel quality blue chip dividend stocks do. Good dividend stocks give the possibility of lifetime income along with some potential growth, and they have an aspect of market protection. And bottom line, I'm confident you can succeed if you're willing to carefully grab the investment opportunities that might be staring you in the face. And sometimes we miss things that are right in front of us, which reminds me of a true story. It's about a guy named Joshua Bell, who was a child prodigy in the violin, and he grew into one of the most outstanding virtuosos of our time. Now he uses a 300-year-old Stradivarius violin worth upwards of $15 million. So in 2007, Joshua Bell teamed up with the Washington Post and decided to do a social experiment. They thought it'd be interesting to take one of the world's greatest musicians and put him in an ordinary place. So he went to a Washington, D.C. metro train station wearing his baseball cap, and he put out a tip jar before he started playing. Now, they thought his playing would create a massive scene where people would stop and applaud, and it would turn into an amazing impromptu concert in an unexpected place. But what happened was even more incredible. Check out this video of him playing, and it will speed up shortly after it starts to quickly show you what happened, or rather, what didn't happen. So during the 45 minutes he played, they figured out that over 1,000 people walked by, most on their way to work. And yet pretty much no one seemed to notice or care about him playing. In fact, only 7 people stopped to listen to him play, and he collected a grand total of something like $40 in tips. And of those 7 people that stopped, only one person recognized the violinist was Joshua Bell, one of the greatest musicians in the world, playing one of the most intricate pieces of classical music ever written. And yet a few days before, Mr. Bell was playing at a sold-out concert in Boston, where seat prices average over $100 a pop, with some seats costing way more. So reflect on all that for a moment. I mean, if people don't have the time to stop and listen to one of the best musicians in the world playing some of the best music ever written, then how many other things are we missing out on in life? It makes me think of people who miss out on how amazing quality dividend stocks are, or how awesome investing is in general, at least over the long run. That story also reminds me that no matter how wonderful you are, if you're in the wrong environment, you might be treated as invisible or even disposable, and you can't let your environment and the way people might react to you affect the way you see yourself. And with that, I'd like to close things off with a shout out to my latest Patreon aristocrat named Bacon or Death. Plus, I'd like to pitch my FASTgraphs affiliate link along with my coupon code in the description of this video, as using both will allow new users to get 25% off their first payment even if they sign up for a full year. And check out my Seeking Alpha affiliate link, as new users often get discounts for signing up. Finally, take a look at my Patreon seats to see if there are any you want to sign up for, but since my Patreon Aristocrat and King seats are usually sold out, I'll also recommend that you join my channel membership, which gives you a variety of perks, including a badge icon that is placed by your comments on my videos, and which levels up over time as long as you're a member, and you get the ability to vote on which thumbnails I use for my next video, and you get to watch my videos about a day before I release them publicly. But whatever you do, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and click the bell notification. And don't forget to join my free Dividend Discord chat server, which has over 11,000 dividend investors on it from 81 countries around the world. Thanks for watching, stay positive, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor, and my videos are for entertainment and inspirational purposes only. Investing of any kind involves risk. I'm only sharing my opinions with no guarantee of gains or losses on investments.